What's going on, y'all? We up in here one more again. The night before Christmas. The night before Christmas, my homeboy gave to me. Right? So up in this live, we're gonna go ahead, man. We're gonna get a little bit of some more players that we done touched up on, that I touched up on. And then also we're gonna have like a little discussion, right? As you can see by the title, is the Cowboys truly good at drafting? And when we touch on that, after I go ahead and touch on these players, man, I at least went back a good 4 years, right? That's pretty much, enough time, right? To go ahead, man, and go ahead and piece this thing together and see, is the Cowboys truly good at drafting? What's going on, Rich? What's going on? So, first things first, before we get into talking a little bit of Cowboys, man, we're going to go ahead and touch on some of these players. Now, I watched them, and I was able to get a good feel for them. Some I didn't watch as thoroughly as others because we're kind of close to the time, so I kind of wanted to be familiar with a lot more players, right? I went on ahead and touched up on Mafi from UCLA, and he, as I watched him, he's pretty much who I thought that he was, right? A big guard, a mauler, right? I might have a little bit thing with him as far as getting to the second level consistently when it comes down to cutting off athleticism. But as far as being a big boy, being a big mauler and getting it out, in the game that I watched, I believe I watched it was Utah. He did okay enough, man, in pass coverage to say that he wouldn't necessarily be a liability, right? But definitely, right, I see a lot of similarity as far as the type of player with him and Chris Avila, right? I guess that's how they pronounce his name. It ain't Avila, it's Avila. And so with Chris Avila, they pretty much the same player. So I'm like, if Mafi is pretty much probably what, a 4th round pick, why is Chris Avila a 1st round pick? And he's pretty much the same type of player. Didn't really make sense to me, right? And to be quite frank with you, I'd rather have Mafi probably over Chris Avila. So, and then I also touched on I can't think, it's Chris Chris something, the right guard for Oklahoma. I touched on him. That's kind of meh with me, right? But the ones who I covered a little bit more, I started watching the Florida. Actually, before I hopped on here, I started to attempt to watch the Florida linebacker. Who else did I attend? The North Carolina outside backer. I'll be honest with you. I only watched one game of him. But I'll be candid. I thought it was trash because he was going against a team that he should have been dominating, and he looked like he was a lost puppy out there. So if you looking like a lost puppy with that type of competition, I don't care if you got a sack against a better competition, man. You're supposed to be dominating competition like that, man. Especially, man, if you're gonna go ahead and be up in the draft, man. But yeah, I didn't like that game, man. So that kind of deterred me from even watching any more of him. I'll be honest with you though. But one of the first ones that we're gonna get into is Corey Darden from NC State, 6'5", 312, right? This was a subscriber request. So watching him, Corey, right? Corey cool. Corey's cool, man. He's more of a 0 and a 1 tech to me, right? One thing that I like about Corey is that he stands up centers with his hands, right? He won't provide much pass rush, but I think if he got a little bit bigger, man, I think, man, he could be a nice 1st and 2nd down player for a team, right? So Corey Darden is somebody that I definitely would be have some type of interest in, right? His swim move though is a little bit of it's a little slow. It is. It's a little slow. Uh, but one thing I like about him is that he's strong. Uh, the games that I watched of him, I didn't see him getting moved back. Right. Uh, I would like him to fight better against him being washed, but that can be teach. That's just a technique thing, right? Uh, he can run nose tackle stunts, right? Uh, I honestly thought from the games that I watched, he needed to take on doubles a little bit better, right? And once he fixed that, he'd be solid, right? But just because I said that, because normally when I say that, it's like, oh, he's kind of a little bit weak when it comes down to taking on double teams. And he wasn't weak at taking double teams, not whatsoever. But I just think that he can be better at it, right? So that's just a testimony to what I think of the player when it comes down to the run game, right? But I like the way he stacks and he sheds, man, and he has a good motor. Overall, man, if you're looking for a nice first and second down player, man, somebody that's going to contribute to the run, somebody that the Dallas Cowboys desperately need, Corey Darden, he'll be on my watch list around probably about that fourth, fifth round, right? So he's definitely somebody that I would be considering, right? The next man that I watched also was a subscriber request was Ronnie Hickman. Now I wasn't able to go ahead and get it in-depth analysis on Ronnie though, but just a brief thing, right? Ohio State 6'1", 200, right? More of a box safety, but he's a box safety with ball skills, man. I like the way that he was tackling in space, the games that I watched, and he takes good angle, right? But that's probably the analysis that I got of him so far, though. But he seems solid though, because I seen him taking a interception to the crib. So I like that. I seen that he was a short tackler in space, and I also like that, man. So anybody who might need a box safety later on, man, is definitely Ronnie Hickman would definitely be in consideration. Now, my next player would be Felix Uzamo from Kansas State, 6'3", 255, right? He's being a little bit talked about, and I was able to give a thorough analysis regarding him, right? And one thing about Felix is he definitely has some tightness in his hips. Definitely got tightness in his hips. He's more of a rotational player, right? Now, he does have the sack production, right? But just because he had now I'll give you a comparison. Now I know it's probably an awkward comparison, but it also is a relevant comparison, right? And we know it's awkward for certain reasons, right? And the comparison that I'll give you is Michael Sam. We know that Michael Sam gave production, right, at Mizzou, right? He gave sack production though, but does what he did in college translates to the NFL? No, because of his ability to bend and the tightness in his hips, which Felix got. And I'm thinking that it could be possible that Felix may suffer from that, though. But I think, especially in today's NFL, Felix can have a role in being a rotational defensive end and do it quite well, One thing, he hustles, right? His best game that I see was the TCU game, and I believe I wrote it down, 6 sacks, which is impressive, right? 6 sacks on any team is impressive, right? So that was a good game, right? And also, man, you look at TCU, they wasn't who they was this year, evidently, man, because it looked like the difference between Duggan and Johnston that year is a totally different from what you've seen this year. I'll tell you that, right? But like I said, he's not very explosive, right? And my question mark, which regards to his hips, is can he capture the edge consistently in the NFL, right? I like his swim move. I like his wax on, wax off move. The bop, little swim move. He knocks some hands off. Like he got a cool technique on him though. But if he had better hips, if he was able to bend, we might be talking about him a little bit higher, right? But just because he lacks able to bend, that's why he's probably gonna get drafted a little lower than usual, though. But a team might take him third round, something like that, right? Somewhere in that area, right? This draft is more about depth and starting quality than star power, right? But the cool thing about it is you probably get some star power on the people that you think, right, in the later rounds. I think the people that's coming out in the later rounds will probably give you a little bit more star power than it would be the people that's coming out that'll be picked a little early, other than the obvious stars, right? But he does need to improve in setting the edge. He loses position in the run game, and that's a problem, right? But like I said, the sack production was there. He pursues the football well. He has heavy hands, and I said, for my evaluation, I said that he should be a solid player in the league, right? Not elite, but he should be solid, right? The next player that I watched was Jonathan Mingo, wide receiver from Ole Miss, 6'2", 220. Now, he was somebody that I had to try to dig in a little bit deeper, right? Because the games that I watched, I didn't see a whole lot of route tree. I had to try to dig in a little bit deeper, but I did see he the route tree that he ran evolved a lot more as I try to dig into him a little bit more. But he does got good size and good speed, right? A bigger wide receiver. And one thing that I like about him is that he's a willing blocker, right? He may not be the most fluid when it comes out of his breaks, but that can, the traits that he has, the physical traits, man, and the size and the speed, man, that can go ahead, man, and trump that, right? I like that he works back to the football. And I do believe, man, once developed and the team get a hand on him, man, and really develop him, I do believe that he could be a good 3-level wide receiver, man. I do see some good things on Jonathan Mingo, man, if they bring it out right. So Jonathan Mingo is definitely somebody that I'll keep my eye out on, most definitely, right? The next player that I watched was Clark Phillips, Utah. Clark Phillips the third. Let me go ahead and correct myself, right? 5'9", 184. I like Clark Phillips, man. He's a strong player, a strong corner, man. He's short, right? But I'm not too. I don't really knock a short corner if he can jump, right? But like Verrett, right? Verrett was knocked because of his height, but Verrett got sticky, and he can jump. But Verrett's problem is him staying healthy. What's going on, Teflon? But yeah, his problem is just being available, right? But Clark Phillips is a good football player, right? He has I like him in all coverage because he drives on the football well. I believe that Clark Phillips is a slot cornerback, and I also believe that he may be able to give a team some free safety flexibility, man. I also think he could probably play a little free safety just because of how strong that he is as a player, right? And his body, right? But he may, like I said, he may struggle with bigger receivers as far as in the jump ball category. I had a question mark on his long speed because I did see a couple wide receivers take him a little bit over the top, and I also seen him have a trouble when it come down to matching in the route as far as guarding and shallow route. So I did have some question marks regarding that though. But he is smooth in and out of his breaks, right? Like I said, the end breaking routes was kind of a question mark when it came down to guarding quicker wide receivers, though. But he does got a good nose for the football and is a ball hawk. That's why I think that free safety might be something a team. It might be an option for a team, man. It's kind of like a Tyrann Mathieu type of thing, man. You might be able to get maybe a Tyrann Mathieu type of player out of him. Who knows, man? I wouldn't not draft him because of his height, man. Because at the end of the day, can you play ball, man? And I think that if putting in the right situation, he can play ball. Because I believe Jordan Lewis ain't nothing too tall either. Jordan Lewis is what, like 5'9", 5'10", right? And he doing just fine, right? He doing just fine, right? Right. We have our times, man, where we kind of get annoyed with Jordan Lewis, man. Sometimes, man, we feel like he don't show up though, but when he do show up, it look nice, right? We know that Jordan Lewis gonna take away the football, and I believe that Clark Phillips kind of like because I remember watching Jordan Phillips, matter of fact, and Clark Phillips, maybe kind of similar as far as man at the tape, man, as far as taking the ball away and just competing, right? because one thing you see with Clark is that he competes, man. He's a tough football player, all in all, man. How you feel about fixing the trenches in this draft, O-line and D-line? D-line definitely needs to be addressed. I believe outside and in. To be honest with you, Teflon, I believe they should address that in this draft. And there's some D tackles, and especially one that's getting ready to come up pretty soon that I think would be an excellent fit for the Dallas Cowboys. And you can get him at a good rate as far as like a 4th, 5th round pick. Oh my gosh. Hey, and we're going to get into it because he done ended up, man, he done messed around and might ended up being my top 3 football player watching, man. I ain't gonna lie, man. I enjoy watching this tape. Matter of fact, he's up next. But O-line, I see. Okay, so before I went to bed, I was listening to that Jerry Jones and Stephen Jones and Mike McCarthy pre-draft press conference, right? And I was listening, because you know what Jerry will go ahead and give you some gems, and you he kind of put you some and have you put some thinking games in what he said, right? And what I got from Jerry, especially when it comes down to the draft and the players, is as far as he's looking at things from a future contract point of view. Does he want to pay you or not? He's looking to maybe even try to replace you this year. And he also kind of brought up as far as allocating resources at the offensive line, right? He knows that, of course he wants to go ahead, I think Stephen Jones said this, that pretty much every year, as far as refreshing and grabbing offensive line content, they like to do that within the first few rounds, right? The first 4 rounds, right? So with that being the case, right, now start looking. Okay, so they looking at contracts. Okay, so you got to pay Micah, you got to pay Trayvon, right? Maybe you got to pay Steele. Bias is ready to come up. Tyler Smith get ready to get a fat contract, right? So you got all these bodies that you're going to have to pay. You probably going to have to pay Sam Williams. I'm pretty sure Sam Williams is going to be on the 2nd contract here with the Dallas Cowboys, right? So you got all these bodies to pay, right? Maybe even Damone Clark, right? Because Michael Parsons is going to break the bank, right? So when we look at this draft, we preparing for Michael Parsons to break the bank, because I'm sorry, they're going to have to break the bank for Michael Parsons, and it's going to be well worth it, right? So with that being the case, right, that's why I make the case of saying that a player like Matt Waletzko, it'd be somebody that they counting on. Because one, you get some free years and get some cheap years, right? You get some I think, man, when Michael, because when I heard, I already knew this by the type of players that they drafted, but Jerry Jones confirmed it when I listened to that. As far as Mike McCarthy having his input on this team, that's why you see players like Tyler Smith and Matt Waletzko, because Matt Waletzko reminded me of David Bakhtiari. So with that being the case, I think they're going to try to get maybe a cool 3 years, cheap years out of him, right? I don't think they want to go ahead and keep Tyler Smith at left tackle, because you're going to have to pay him like a franchise left tackle. And that's going to be more money than you would have to pay him if he was playing left guard, right? Of course, we know that he could thrive at both spots. I personally think that he should play left guard, right? I think he'll be a better left guard, but I'm thinking as far as money-wise, I think they want to find a way to keep him at left guard. So whether they see a good player that may fall to him, maybe one of these top tackles that'll fall to him at 26, or they're going to go ahead and bank on Matt Waletzko. So I think if it's all said and done, y'all, I think it's Waletzko, right? They're going to have Tyron Smith. He got 1 more year. So I think they're going to try to brand Matt Waletzko. They're going to try to keep him so they can go ahead and pay him a cheap contract after he showed that he probably could be starting quality. Because I believe, as far as with his footwork and his ability to move and what I done seen early on last year, I think he could play that left tackle and be good at it, right? Because he got the length for it, he got the size for it, he got the footwork for it. Only thing he needed to do was get in that film room and hit them weights, right? And just like what we thought with Tyler Biadasz, what I always said with Tyler Biadasz, the only thing that he needs to do is get more experience and hit them weights. As soon as he got that, he ended up being a good center for us, right? So I think with that, but So they might look at it like this. I think it's going to be Waletzko, Tyler Smith, maybe look at